I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As a way of respecting, honoring, and creating awareness about our past, we begin our village board meetings by acknowledging that New Paltz is on the ancestral land of the Munsee, Esopus, and Lenape people.
Okay, we have a very long agenda this evening, so I'm just gonna jump into it. Bill, do you want to provide us with a firehouse update?
Sure. Give me 1 second. There we go. Hi. Yep, we've started with the ICFs at the firehouse. It's moving along steadily. Next week, they'll start the second story, actually the second course of the ICF. So that's moving along. That's about it. But now with good weather, we hope to make up some ground that we've lost previously, and it's all systems go.
Fantastic. Any other announcements?
I just wanted to share an update on housing stuff. So the state eviction moratorium is set to be extended through August 31st. And it looks like it will pass, early next week instead of before May 1st. So, heads up, everyone. It's going to be extended in the state as well. And that's for residential and commercial tenants.
So even though there's a delay, are there any consequences?
I don't believe so. It seems like from a few things I've read, there is like an error that I read the law a couple times, the proposed law a couple times. I'm like, I don't know how they even caught that, but a little error that had to be fixed. So they had to kind of deal with that. But apparently there will not be repercussions. It'll be a good extension of what we've had through August 31st.
Yeah, I heard the vote's on Monday.
Yeah.
Okay, any other announcements? Okay, we have a public hearing open. Do we have any comments regarding the storm sewers and stormwater management law updates? If there are no comments from the public, and if we have not received anyone, I motion that we move to close this public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have any comments or anyone here to make a public comment regarding the public hearing for the short-term rental law? If there's been nothing, I motion that we move the closure of the short-term rental law public hearing.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Yeah, like,
And
yes.
then I want to, so on this agenda, we have item number 3. It says consider approving updated storm sewer and stormwater management law if public hearing is closed. I want to add 3A, same thing regarding short-term rental law. Okay, anyone here to make a public comment on any other topic? Jane, turn your mic off or unmute yourself. Sorry, there you go.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Jane Schanberg, and I live in the village. I think I know most of you. I'm here tonight to make a public comment as part of the UACT Housing Committee. We had a very nice meeting, I understand, with Mayor Tim. It was very cordial, and we had a good exchange. And I would like to just add some data for your information for the rest of the board that follows the things that we discussed with Mayor Tim. It came to our attention that updates on the Ulster County Action Plan for Housing from this past February had some data that we think is important to highlight publicly in the village, because according to the 2018 HUD stats, the village is severely cost burdened with respect to housing. 26 to 35% of village households, according to these statistics, are severely cost burdened with regard to housing versus 16 to 20% in the town. And there are two other areas, Gardner and Woodstock, it's interesting to note, that are also severely cost burdened with respect to housing. Some of the unaffordability factors they cite as low inventory, which I think we all know is going on here. Escalation in housing prices, which we've also seen dramatically. Very little new construction, which I'll follow up later. And of course, low wages. In addition, they cite fair market rent for a 2-bedroom apartment in the county as $1,155. And I think we would find a challenge to find a 2-bedroom apartment in New Paltz Village for that price. I happen to live in the Ridge, and my neighbor upstairs recently got a rent rise, and her rent was $2,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment, and she was freaking out. She's a single mother with a small child that goes to public school. In tandem with that is the income. 21% of our neighbors work in government, and their average salary, according to these statistics, this is Department of Labor statistics, I'm not making this up, is $60,000 on average, and 16.3% of our neighbors work in healthcare. That's the second tier, and those people earn approximately $43,000 on average. So also with that, the 55 to 60 age group is the largest segment of our population, measured in 2018 by a Census Bureau survey. And of course, those people, many of them occupy homes and are feeling the squeeze with taxes. And they also would like to leave those homes because of maintenance and all kinds of other affordability issues and lifestyle issues, but they have pretty much nowhere to move. And I happen to be one of them. If I vacated my current apartment, I would have really no place I could afford to move, and probably no choice to move anywhere. So what we are focusing on in our housing work is housing for seniors, housing for single parents with children, housing for families, housing for couples. And we want to applaud the village because you have the 10% must be affordable housing law with any new construction. And so with new construction, there are 2 developments that are listed on your website that we feel might bear a different kind of scrutiny and might possibly also have unintended consequences should they go forward. And the first one of those is the hotel. And I know a hotel is not competitive with apartments, but if you took that block of land that the hotel is slated for, and we looked at putting up an apartment building there, that might serve the community, just as a thought, in a better way than a hotel in terms of the use and in terms of the crisis that we're having in housing right now. The second thing that we saw is the 650-room Moriello project. And that, for the use, we feel, while that has a constituency that it's aiming for, it isn't really suitable even for couples, or certainly not for families, certainly not for seniors. So once again, we would have 2 big projects that are new projects, but that would be not adding any affordable, livable housing for citizens. They would be sort of more special interests, either tourists or campus, students. And I could go on and give you a little bit of detail about the size of the rooms that I saw on the plans on that Moriello project. And 2 people could not live in one of those rooms. They're simply with a bed for 2 people. There would only be about 3 feet on one side and about 18 inches on the other side. If you subtracted walking room, which is 24 inches for people. They're just too small. So we would love to work with you to see real world proposals for housing based on the current crisis, based on the realities, based on the needs, so that we could have many more options here in the village. And I thank you for listening. And I hope that you will, follow up with us, and just, would you have any questions of me? Because I've thrown a lot of statistics at you.
I have a question for you, Jane.
Sure.
I mean, what do you think about the idea, though, if the Moriello project south of the college, which would end up being contiguous with the village, if that gets approved, wouldn't that additional housing supply be a net benefit in terms of overall housing supply in the village? Like, effectively, students who may be occupying properties somewhere else could be absorbed with this additional housing stock, because the college has told us repeatedly for the last 10 years that they have no plans to increase enrollment.
Here's the issue that some of us see. I'm not speaking for everybody, but I can speak for myself. One of the things that this project is so large that it has a huge impact, I think, an outsized impact on both the village and the town, but certainly the village. The fact that it would be for students and that the rooms are only 10 by 11 really doesn't make it suitable for anything else. The students aren't necessarily going to be here year round. So then we have a very large empty, complex. I live in a complex that looks sort of like the general plan, and there's a lot of people in here. It's really very functional, and it's well run. I think the unintended consequences of the village would be that it would perhaps the students would free up the village houses, but then what you would have is second homeowners, because it would turn into something like Bridgehampton Village, where they could get off the bus and just walk into the village to their houses. The taxes aren't a problem for people with New York incomes. And then you have fewer homes for people from around here, the kind of middle class homes we always had, people who work in the drugstores and the doctor's offices who've always been able to live in New Paltz and now can't. Now, part of the culprit, as I see it, is the school taxes, which I really don't want to address tonight, but
yeah, I think this is such an important topic, Jane, but we're in public comment and we have a long meeting. I agree and disagree with a lot of your points, and we work on these issues all the time. And I believe there's openings on the Landlord Tenant Council and the Affordability Board, Affordable Housing Board. I do tend to agree with Tim that easing the burden off the village housing stock. But again, and also I need to say out loud that that's not actually a village board decision. It's a planning board decision. So there's going to be opportunity, and I would be flabbergasted if both those projects you mentioned didn't become a magnet for a lot of public comment and dialogue. I do want to be sure to say, if you know anyone that's getting rent increases and they feel like it's either not a fair process or the amount is arguably not, well, Alex knows a lot more about what's allowed and what's not allowed, but basically I want to make sure that you bring back to anyone who's a tenant and people here, if you feel like there's something not right with a lease renewal, please contact Alex. It's so fun to say.
Not at all. That was not.
And I think that this is a complicated topic. We've been talking about it as a crisis before the pandemic, and now a crisis on steroids because of the pandemic. So we share your concerns. But there's a lot of dominoes to this, and
we're aware.
We look forward to more discussion. And one of the big things is that we're going to have the county come to our joint meeting on May 12th. It is, again, quote unquote, just an agenda item on that particular meeting, but we hope that we'll have other meetings and other places for dialogue about how we work with the county to execute their plan. I mean, they have a list of directives that we've done a lot of what they're telling everybody to do already. So we feel like we need to continue to be ahead of the curve. And while we're not the only ones, for example, who are passing or have passed a short-term rental law, there's no magic wand for this one. We have to intervene in all the places that we can, and we're really trying. And I just want to thank your group for putting so much focus on this, because I really do think we have an issue with public awareness about it and the bifurcation between people who are all right and people who are not all right. And the not all right is growing, and it's because of cost of living, and it's a crisis. So thank you.
We do. No, thank you for giving me the time to talk about this. UACT is an activist group, and we're very active in this area and others. And we really would love to work with you on this, talk it through. I'm sure there'll be other opportunities. And please don't hesitate to call us. And again, thank you for giving me the time on a busy night for all of you.
Thanks, Jane.
Bye.
Bye. Any other public comments? Hearing no, I'm gonna move on and motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
You have to add things to it first.
Oh,
I gotta add things to the consent agenda?
Yeah, the approval of the request to waive a 30-day waiting period for guac taco and tequila bar, and the approval of a records destruction request.
I second Ariana's additions.
No,
To the
I
consent
second Tim moving what Ariana said.
Okay, great. All right, moving the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
You
And
also have
thank
to add
you
the
to
stuff
the
to
folks
the,
that are stepping up to serve, Chris, and who have served.
you also have to add the stuff to the business agenda.
There's a ton of stuff on the business
Yeah.
agenda. At this point, I'm not even clear what needs to be added.
They
'Cause
all have
I added-
asterisks, and I have a list if you want me to read it.
I could read it.
No, I mean, but not everything. I mean, there are things I added to this agenda tonight or today that don't have an asterisk.
Oh, well, that's not my fault.
Well, then you should know what they are.
Okay, fine, I'll do it. Number 3, stormwater. Number 3A, short-term rental. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't need to do 3A. Number 4 is already there. Number 5 is a letter for Ulster County. Number 7 is the accessory dwelling unit draft law. Number 8, proposed zoning amendments. Number 9, proposed zoning changes to the B1 and B2. Number 10, post office parking area lease. Number 11, municipal public square lease. Number 13, authorize the mayor to sign and release zero place subject to final revisions by the village attorney. Number 14, I guess that was maybe already on there. I added some detail.
Yeah, so some of these actually were already on here. Post office lease is on here. So was CCA electricity supply. You just added detail. And then the last one is 18.
Number 18, declare lead agency for Moriello Park. That's the groundwater well project? Is
Yes.
it?
Yes.
Okay, can you just write that in there? And that was it. Motion to move the business agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm sitting in my car because there's no internet inside Village Hall. Hopefully my laptop has enough power.
here comes the rain.
Okay, does anyone want to walk us through item number 1?
I think we should power through because we have such a big agenda.
Great. Number 2, Ryan McClintock is here. He's interested in serving on our Shade Tree Commission. Ryan, tell us a little bit about your interest. I think several of us here know who you are and are excited about your interest in serving, but just quickly tell us about why you're so excited. Oh, you're on mute.
Hello, I'm Ryan, and yeah, I'm thrilled to join the Shade Tree Commission. Well, I spend most of my free time these days walking around either on the rail trail or in the preserves, bird watching and in nature and things like that. I work indoors, so I like to be outdoors a lot. I'd love to be part of a community-oriented group. I'm kind of like an amateur naturalist bird watcher, so giving the birds a nice place to live is also in my interest. I don't know, since I was a kid, my grandpa used to take me out in the forest and stuff like that, so I've always been into it.
Good stuff. Does anyone have any questions for Ryan or want to just give us a quick description of the roles and responsibilities of Shade Tree Commission membership?
Michelle should do that.
Go through Shade Tree. It's a great group of people, really just looking at trees in our community, making sure they're healthy, planting new trees when needed, working with the community to, if they have requests to take down a tree or have a tree looked at, if it's, doesn't look like it's thriving or needs to be cut down, but always with the goal of replacing said tree if something does need to be taken down. So it's, it's just really, it's an environmental way of looking at our community as well as to beautify the community. So it really is a great group of folks who are really dedicated. So thank you for wanting to join.
Oh, thank you.
Any other questions?
Nope. Thank you, Ryan. You're awesome.
Okay, I'd like to motion to appoint Ryan to the Shade Tree Commission.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
I'd like to motion that we move adoption of the storm sewers and storm water management laws where we just closed the public hearing.
Second.
All in
Thanks, Ryan.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You're free to go, Ryan.
Aye.
I'd like to motion that we move approval
Can I-
of,
Sorry, do you guys want these public hearings on the May 12th agenda?
We closed them.
I mean, sorry. Okay, sorry.
Is that right?
Totally.
It's all right. By the way, I really like how you're putting the public hearings on the top of the laws that we're proposing. I think that's a really good practice that you started.
agree. I'd like to move approving the short-term rental law, having
Second.
closed the public hearing this evening.
Second.
Any
Third.
discussion?
I'm just really happy that we took the time to do this slowly and well and to get feedback across many months and different people in the community. And I feel really good about it. But my urgent patience is over. I want to get it on the books because every 2 weeks we don't do it is another 2 weeks that the harm that we think we are minimizing by passing this law continues.
Yeah, and we got nice positive feedback from our attorney who's helped us in editing it, but it's generally been a village board effort. And her feedback this week was she was going to appropriate a lot of what we had done because other municipalities are looking to do similar short-term rental laws. So I thought that was really nice feedback. All in favor of moving the short-term rental law?
Aye.
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 Next item is we have drafted as a board a letter to ask for financial assistance from Ulster County leadership. We basically have two projects where we're asking for a total of $418,400, $200K towards improving and expanding the parking options at the Huguenot Street parking lot near the entrance to the Gardens for Nutrition. This is a project we've discussed many times in the past with county leadership. And then the other project where we're looking for assistance from Ulster County would be in the amount of $218,400. That's the amount that we budgeted as a village board to help us in our water fund, largely because we've had not enough college students taking showers in the dorms, where the dorms are only at 43% occupied currently. So we have a serious revenue challenge, and we have lenders who want us to pay back the money that we borrowed from them to install a new water filtration unit. So this was our 1-year plan to make sure that we had enough cash flow to service our debt. So what we're doing is asking the county to help us with assistance, as they're receiving north of $30 million from the federal government in relation to virus aid. Does anyone want to comment or expand upon my description, or should we? My motion is to send the letter to the chair of the legislature and the county exec and our New Paltz legislators.
I really appreciate the letter.
Yeah, it's really great. I mean, I remember years ago walking over to the Huguenot Street parking lot with Mike Hine and asking for less than $200,000 to get that done. And fast forward, here we are. The county is getting considerable stimulus funding. We are not. And I think that this is a legitimate ask to the county in terms of what we need as a municipality to serve both long-term and visit residents and daily or overnight visitors. And like we always like to do, is to remind everyone that we don't think the sales tax agreement is fair. And in a context of a zip code that generates $12 to $13 million a year and only receives under $300,000, and that's the town, that's not even us, to do things like deal with waste and roads and parking and all the things that are associated with tourism. I think this is the least the county can do, especially when it's throwing away close to $30 million tax breaks to wealthy developers. But I digress, and we'll come back to that point later.
Right. Yeah, and I would just add, we are receiving some aid from the federal government, but to borrow your word, it's not considerable.
Yes, and I shouldn't use absolutes. You're right. It's not nothing.
Yep. Any other comments on the letter that we're looking to share?
It's a great letter, Tim. Thank you. That parking lot's so perfectly situated for our needs. So let's hope we get it.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically, and it's a $200,000 project. It could come in at less, but basically the idea is to add a new top coat of blacktop and improve the existing impervious surface at the lot and dedicate it and restripe it, and just make it clear that people are supposed to be parking there, and maybe include some lighting so folks feel safer. And then encourage, folks to walk into town from that location, or walk to historic Huguenot Street from that location. It's a concept, as KT pointed out, that we've been brainstorming about for a long time, including with the previous county exec and our county legislators and folks from historic Huguenot Street. So all in favor of sharing the letter?
Aye.
Great. I motion that we authorize the village attorney to represent and submit an application for the Mohonk Preserve subdivision of 2.4 acres for municipal drinking water well. So this is a project that we've been working on for a long time. It's just lots of I's and to be dotted and T's to be crossed. So did you second it, Bill?
I did, yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
And so we have a draft of an accessory dwelling unit law. This would make things more streamlined when property owners want to add an accessory dwelling unit to their properties. I believe the village has had a law like this in the past, and then it was eliminated from our code. So this is kind of an updated version. I've vetted it with the county planning department and our attorney. I want our village board to take a close look at it. We can share it, including with Jane and others from UACT. I think this is the kind of thing that would be very helpful in terms of adding housing stock within our community and helping folks who own property and want to stay here to manage affordability. And I want to do what we've done with some of our other public hearings is, we're not motioning to open a public hearing or to schedule a public hearing because this law is ready to go 100%. We want to do this to get the word out that this draft exists, and we're looking for feedback. I think it's very close, if not 100% ready, but we're completely open to feedback from the community if people see things within this proposed law that need to be tweaked. And this is what we did last year or the year before regarding the height of lawns. This is what we did with the proposal to make a section of Huguenot Street one way. This is what we did with the short-term rental law. Like, we want to be a board that engages the community. And when we schedule public hearings, it's not because we're ready to rubber stamp anything, but because we actually are soliciting feedback from the community. So I'd like to motion that we schedule a public hearing for this draft law.
Second.
Ariana, what date should we use?
May 12th.
Okay.
This is I was skipping ahead to earlier. Yeah, May 12th at 7 p.m. is fine.
Perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the next item is similar in that for a few years now, we've been looking at different properties on our zoning map, and some feel like they would make more sense if they were in different zones. We've had some requests from property owners. So this is the same thing. It's like a list of properties, and I want to make the list public. I want to ask the neighbors to see what they think about these proposed changes to the zoning map, and then consider it as an amendment to our zoning map. So I'd like to go ahead and share this publicly and seek feedback via opening a public hearing on May 12th.
Tim, I'm totally down with that, but should we also talk about how we want to revise the B1 and the B2 to look more like the MBR?
That's item number 9.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was on this.
Sorry, it might be a little, they're not necessarily related because some of the properties, for instance, are R1 that we want to make R3.
Oh, right. That's the next thing. Duh.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, so I just want to share this draft list of properties publicly. That's all, and seek feedback.
Second.
And well, also, Ariana, maybe you and I can brainstorm about, this I think would not be required, or, there probably is. Well, I'm not even 100% sure. I know that, this is the kind of thing that once it's before a planning board, if there's an application, then neighbors have to be notified by mail. But I think as a village board, we could probably identify nearby neighbors and send them a physical letter in addition to our regular channels of, sharing this on social media or writing letters to the paper. I think sending out some physical letters to neighbors of the properties that we're discussing would make sense. So Ariana, you want to work on that with me?
Absolutely.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great. And then, so KT was referencing this other idea that we've been chewing on for a while. And I've vetted this again with our attorney and with our building enforcement official. But we have a couple of commercial zones in the village that are referred to as B1 and B2. This proposal involves taking the more recently vetted NBR commercially zoned district and using that as the template and modifying it, and then using that modified version of the NBR and placing it where the B1 and B2 zones exist. I would also note that this agenda item does not include making any changes whatsoever to the NBR. This is only to use NBR as a template and then to apply it to the B1 and B2. And part of the thinking is that the town created a gateway zone on the eastern portion of Main Street. So this would just make Main Street more contiguous and have zoning that felt consistent throughout Main Street. And, this would be another thing I think that would make sense in terms of our, ongoing concern about housing affordability and smart density and supporting community that's focused on having a walkable Main Street. I think this checks off a lot of boxes, but this is a relatively heavy lift. But I think the way we get there is, again, to put this out there publicly and seek public feedback on this draft to some zoning changes. So same thing, like share it on social media, put a letter in the paper saying that this is something that we're seeking feedback about. Does anyone want to add anything? And there's another piece in here too. Currently in the B1, there's no provision for hotels. So a piece of this, and this I think connects to our short-term rental law, where we don't want basically not approved mini hotels existing in residential neighborhoods, but we do want hotels in zones that feel appropriate to have hotels, and for these types of businesses to exist in commercially zoned areas, like what may become the former B1 or former B2, if it's this new version of the NBR. So that's one material change that's also in this draft. Does anyone have any questions? So I motion that we set a public hearing for May 2nd to begin seeking public feedback on this change.
For May 12th,
What did I say?
May 2nd,
Yeah, I accept your friendly amendment to my motion.
and I will second it.
Good catch. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Did we lose KT? Maybe she like
Yeah.
Village Hall, where I have no internet, so now I'm stuck in a car. Maybe KT lost internet as well. Okay, so the next item, this is a project that's been in the works for my entire time in office, going on 6 years. So we've been working to update the lease where the village leases property from the landlord of the post office, and we have 21 parking spaces where we currently have meters. So this plan would be to reorganize the parking spaces and then create a pocket park, and then we would end up where we do not lose any of the parking spaces. There are currently 21 spaces. They would basically just be repositioned in a safer way that I think makes more sense for pedestrians who have to walk through that parking lot, and for vehicles, because the aisles will be more clearly delineated. And then we would end up with this nice pocket park on Main Street. The way I was able to get the landlord comfortable with this idea several years ago, we were brainstorming about pursuing this idea. I think it was actually originally Floyd Niffen who brought this to our attention, plus 6 years ago as something to consider. And we got pretty far along, and we even had a local architecture firm design something that would have been really cool to put in that pocket park, but I believe the landlord couldn't get comfortable with it because, let's say that they're ever in a situation where they lose their tenants or they're forced to sell the property. They didn't want to have something that felt permanent. So this new lease will include, putting things that for all intents and purposes are temporary, maybe like large Shawangunk conglomerate rocks to sit on or picnic tables, maybe some plantings. But, if there ever was a situation where this pocket park had to go away, it could go away and we wouldn't be creating any long-term headwinds for the landlord. So that's how we were able to get there. So I'd like to motion that we approve the mayor to sign this updated lease with 41 Main Street Associates LLC.
Second.
Any questions?
Nope. Sounds good.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And then the next item is similar in that we contacted a member of Bird Dog LLC because there's actually that grassy area immediately to the west of this proposed pocket park that we've been talking about, and Bird Dog LLC has graciously allowed us to experiment with using that area for this year. So we created a lease that they signed on to. So, that will be another area. And, this makes sense in the age of COVID where, and I think it definitely supports the downtown businesses and improves, the feel of Main Street where, there'll be some more area for folks to sit. And that would be in the grassy area that's right next to the Wells Fargo Bank, but just west of this proposed pocket park. So I motion that we authorize the mayor to sign this lease.
Second.
Any questions?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The next item is the reciprocal easement with Stewart's. So this is basically the 5 Broadhead project, the Oliver House, and Stewart's needs some utilities to run below grade on that property. So this is just memorializing that, they're going to be allowed to have these utilities underneath the property that the village will own because they're giving it to us. And then we're going to RFP and look for a new owner of that property. So I motion that we move this this easement agreement with Stewart's.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And the next item is I motion that we authorize the mayor to sign the release for Zero Place, subject to final revisions by our village attorney. So Will, Frank, and Ariana spoke about this afternoon. This is, for all intents and purposes, fairly perfunctory, but we just want to make sure that Will has dotted all the necessary I's. Does someone want to second it?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
And then the next item is we've had a CCA for the last 3 years. So this is where, the default arrangement is for people in New Paltz to have their electricity supply come from a company that this group has sought bids on our behalf, and it's just that the contract is due. And we had a call today, and they were very pleased that they've identified Indra Energy for a term of 36 months to start on July 1st. and the default supply option is for 100% New York State generated renewable electricity at prices listed here. And we just need as a board to formally approve this. Does someone want a second or ask any questions or raise any concerns?
Just a quick question, Tim, how's this rate compared to previous year? You know,
I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head. I mean, the challenge with these things is that you're bidding in real time. So these rates are as of today, and there were 5 different energy supply companies that bid. And I think 3 years ago, there were 2 or 3. So they were very excited that more companies bid for the opportunity to sell us power, and the group was very pleased with the competitive rates, and then the fact that this was New York State generated renewable energy by 100% of it, as opposed to, at one point we were thinking, well, maybe we could have 50% renewable and 50% non-renewable if the prices came in differently, but we were pleasantly surprised with the bids we received.
Great, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And did KT come back?
I think she's trying.
Okay, so let's hold off on that one. Item number 15. Okay, so then the next item is we received a request for an ongoing event to occur. I believe it's on Saturday afternoons at 3. Is that right? Does anyone remember off the top of their head, or without clicking on the?
That's correct.
Okay. So we chewed on this idea for a while at our last meeting, and we touched base with our attorney, and I believe our board was comfortable with the idea of approving this event and not requiring the organizers to pursue their own insurance, because for all intents and purposes they would be using the village insurance, and our thinking would be this would be considered okay because it would be a free public event that would be considered a benefit for the community as they'd be providing entertainment. And they've been in the park a couple times previously, and it seems like it's fairly widely enjoyed. The one caveat that our attorney threw out is just in lieu of providing their own insurance, he thought it made sense to ask the performers to sign a liability release and a hold harmless agreement in favor of the village for any injuries that they may sustain to themselves and their property in the park during performances. So I would be comfortable relaying to the performers that we're good with allowing them to provide us with this very generous gift of free entertainment, per the terms described here.
Yeah, it sounds great, Tim. I did ask a question if that waiver is signed by the organizer alone, or does every participant need to sign that? Did you hear back on that from Will?
Oh, I didn't. I don't know. Did you ask Will that particular question?
Yeah, I did. I replied to something I hadn't heard back, so it may be just the organizer.
Yeah, I think he says to have the performers sign liability releases. I mean, maybe what we can do is just provide some blank releases and then ask the organizer to handle that. And then, I think that makes a great deal of sense. If there are a number of performers, to ask all of them to sign the releases individually.
Yeah, sounds good.
I think that's a good catch. So did someone second my motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And what do we think about returning to having board meetings in person? We could do something, and I think Ariana and I were talking about making sure space existed. These essentially could still be like Zoom calls where we're all in the same room. But just the idea that, there would be
Oh no.
a more Is that KT?
Yes.
It's KT at, oh, split screen.
This is a preview of what our hybrid meetings will be like.
We're practicing. I just broke stuff.
We're both fully vaccinated, and this might be a good opportunity to tell folks to go out on the new Paltz emergency preparedness page and look at the new mask guidelines. If you are outside and fully vaccinated, you get to hang out with your friends maskless.
I like your face. I haven't seen it in a while. This is fun.
So I lost internet at my house. So here I am.
Nice.
What are we talking about?
We just discussed the drag in the park, and now we're on to discussing returning into person.
So I think Ariana and Alana, they were brainstorming on how this could be done. I'm comfortable with, let's test this concept with the village board and planning board. I believe the planning board chair, John Linton, was also supportive of seeing whether this would work, and we could still pursue some safety protocol, but see if it would make sense and feel right. So I would be open to, this doesn't require a motion at all, but just like let the Alana and Ariana come up with a plan for those meetings in person.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you and I, Tim, already identified like exactly how we would do it. And it's basically that hybrid version where the public can still be virtual, the town board or other guests can still be virtual, but all of us can be in the same room together. And I think it's going to depend on individuals' comfort levels. And like, the great example we gave is like, okay, someone's planning on coming to the meeting, but then something happens and they have to call in. That's like totally doable for all of you, and you don't have to miss a meeting just because like a babysitter bails or something,
Yeah, for instance, and this is on our consent agenda, you as a board approved Bill and I attending the NICOM conference on June 9th. So Bill and I could still participate in our June 9th village board meeting remotely while you're doing the meeting in person on the grounds at Village Hall. Okay, so does anyone think this is a bad idea, or should we try it?
I think it's a great idea.
I think it's a good idea.
I would very much like to meet with you all in person before the end of June.
I think it's also a good chance to kind of, lead by doing, because, everything is moving into this direction of trying to figure out hybrid in all aspects of life, and how to kind of make it work in this in-between realm. So we should definitely figure that out.
I would say my only, I am enthusiastically excited to return in person. I may here and there, I like that you mentioned it, Ari, I may here and there have childcare conundrums. So in which case I would Zoom in, but I will make every effort to arrange to be there as much as possible.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And that, one of the benefits of COVID is that we've all learned how to use video conferencing software, and we know how to turn the mute on and off now. So it gives us some flexibility for situations like you just described, or like, any of us attending a conference or something. Okay, next item. I move that we declare lead agency for the Moriello Park groundwater well project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I motion that we move bills and claims.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did I miss the
any
item
planning board
about
update?
asking the IDA for a moratorium? I sent you all a draft today.
Yeah, we're gonna do that last with you once we.
Okay, I'm just saying, I just sent a draft. We don't have to do anything. We can do it next meeting. Just please check out the draft and let me know what you think.
Okay. Bill, do you want to walk us through a PB update?
Sure, quickly, The planning board met on April 20th. The main event was Lalo was back with a very rough conceptual sketch of what they would do in the pit. It was decided, it was very rough. It was just showing where the buildings would be located approximately. But at the end of the day, the planning board is going to be the lead agency in examining this.
Okay. Any ZBA update?
No, no ZBA update, but I see Michael Tierney is moving over to ZBA. And that's all.
I don't think that there's anything else on this agenda for us to do, correct?
I just had one thing we forgot to do in announcements, if you don't mind.
Perfect. What's that?
We have an election on Tuesday. Vote at the firehouse, as you typically done about this time of year. 12 to 9, 2 positions are open for trustees and a ballot proposal. So come out and vote 12 to 9 next Tuesday, May 4th.
Cool.
May the
Good.
4th.
Crazy. It's like the end of April, I feel, has been such a weird end of month, and I can't believe, like, just you saying it's next Tuesday is sort of shocking to me, because I thought we had more time before May happened, but we don't, because May starts on Saturday. So yeah.
All right. I think that's all we had on this agenda. Do you want to do anything regarding the resolution requesting an IDA moratorium, KT? Do you want to fill us
I mean,
in?
I could hum a few bars.
Yeah, go
We've been
ahead.
talking about this so much. We made a request on March 10th that the IDA release all tax reductions, be it any shape or form, because we're not seeing a lot of transparency there, and it's worrisome. We haven't heard back from anyone. I don't believe we got receipt of the resolution, which I individually sent. And since then, you know, it's almost like every week more comes out that provoke questions about IDA process in terms of transparency, accountability, fairness, equity, representation. For me, it's a big issue that the local taxing entities, like the City of Kingston School Board, voted against it for reasons that I agree with. But basically the IDA just snubbed their noses at that and went ahead and did it anyway. I think when we're sitting on such an archaic property tax system that maybe was built on ability to pay 100 years ago and no longer is, in tandem with the housing crisis that we discussed earlier, passing the burden of these taxes from wealthy for-profit developers to, you know, somebody has to pay. It's not like the bill goes away, it just gets spread on to everybody else. There's lots of issues here, and there's been a considerable amount of attention to the high-profile Kingstonian pilot approval. So this resolution basically says that the county needs to align itself with documents like the Toward a People-Centered Economy, which says that we need to do economic development differently, very differently, in ways that I think we all agree with that. So I point to that document and say, let's, you know, over here with the IDA county, you're doing one thing, which is your mechanism for economic development, but you have this great policy document that talks about equity and fairness and inclusiveness and using better mechanisms to address affordability and equity issues. So basically the ask is, until there is more accountability, transparency, and structure and process that's aligned with the Towards a People economy document, for example, which is the own counties. I didn't make it up. The county, it's their document. Until that time comes, that we need a moratorium on handing out pilots, because we don't have clear criteria. We don't have representation for all the taxing entities that are impacted. And we have a very hard to figure out it's funny, like people will ask me questions about it. They'll be like, hey T, what's the XYZ of this pilot thing? And I'm like, I don't know, I gotta look that up. And I'll look it up and it's arcane and I can't figure it out. And like, I'm a sociologist, public policy analyst. So I'm gonna go out on a limb that it's like purposefully, or maybe not purposefully, but a system that is made to obfuscate and suppress attention, obfuscate what's going on and suppress attention to it. And we're in a new world. Everybody's paying attention to how these things are being done. And if we keep doing economic development this way, we're in big trouble. And so the folks that kind of don't understand why this is an issue of import to New Paltzians, it's a county tax, it's a county entity. There's ripple effects for us as well. Taxpayers don't care which, pocket it comes out of. So, I'll speak for equity in Kingston or Warsing or Newburgh or wherever. I don't think I need to live there to advocate for equity. But it is something that affects county taxpayer pockets countywide. We got developers, Tim, yourself, they're calling us up and everybody wants to do. There's some really cool stuff on the planning board docket. But we got a verbal, I'm not going to ask for a pilot from Mike Moriello for his thing, because he's like, I heard you guys loud and clear. New Paltz has been very loud on this topic, much to the great work that Tim has done, unraveling this mess that I refer to.
Right. I would just add it's 100% a housing policy that the county IDA has created, which says that, this is beyond workforce housing. This is, mixed use housing. Basically, the net can be cast very wide, where the IDA can unilaterally grant pilots, which, is very unusual and, had never been the case before. And, as you just described, there's lots of, there's some properties that have recently changed hands in New Paltz, and there's interest from developers who want to construct new housing, and we're super excited about that. But we absolutely need developers to pay taxes, because we have stormwater infrastructure to maintain and fire trucks to buy and staff to employ and
kids to educate.
Well, I'm just talking about the
I'm just
village's
saying.
financial
Right.
responsibilities. It's like, we're expected to, pick up the glass and broken candle votives in Hasbrook Park. That doesn't happen unless you're paying staff to do those things.
And just so folks know, affordable housing has a process that to get tax abatements that has nothing to do with the IDA, which has clear criteria and is all about affordable housing. So there actually are tax abatements and programs by which, the folks at RUPCO, utilize to build affordable housing. The scope was expanded by the IDA so that they could do things like non-affordable housing.
Right, they could provide
parking lots where no one in their right mind would build them in this century.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks for moving this conversation forward and creating this draft resolution that we'll look at our May 12th joint meeting, where we'll also have a bunch of public hearings that we just scheduled tonight. All right. Good night, everybody. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We're over at Alex's if you want to come by.
Got it.
Second.
Good night.